Welcome to the latest episode of Luthorville. Today, I'll be addressing part 2 of a video asking, will living in a tiny house or RV be illegal by April of 2016? A few days ago, I posted a video regarding a proposed regulatory change from the Department of Housing and Urban Development called Docket FR 5877P01, which has the potential to make it illegal to live in a tiny house or RV. Potential is the key word. In fact, I use words like possibly and could and potentially very frequently in that video. Now, in my rush to keep the video brief, I regrettably neglected to elaborate on how or why these regulations might pose such a threat. Now, consequently, some viewers claimed I was lying, while others accused me of not understanding the regulation. I want to make this clear. By itself, the proposed regulation will not outlaw living in a tiny house or an RV. That is not what the regulation is about. That is not what the regulation is intended to achieve. Again, as it stands, Docket FR 5877FP01 does not make it illegal to live in an RV or a tiny house. However, it does have the potential to make those living conditions illegal. Allow me to explain what I failed to explain in the previous video. There are two issues. The first issue poses a threat to tiny houses, while the second poses a threat to an RV trailer. So the first issue is that current HUD regulations mandate that any living quarters built on a trailer fits into one of two categories. Number one, a manufactured home, which meets CFR Part 3280 building codes. Or number two, a recreational vehicle, where no building codes are required. Current HUD regulations also state that an RV is, quote, designed primarily not for use as a permanent dwelling, but as temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, travel, or seasonal use. However, under this new regulation, CFR Part 3282.8 will be replaced by CFR Part 3282.15. Now, the new regulation redefines an RV and says it is, quote, designed only for recreational use and not as a primary residence or for permanent occupancy. What makes this a threat to tiny houses? Well, since most tiny houses are promoted, marketed, and used as a permanent residence, changing this definition could potentially mean that tiny houses are no longer classified as an RV, but are instead considered a manufactured home. If all tiny houses are categorized as manufactured homes instead of an RV, and their building specifications do not meet the CFR Part 3280 standard, people could start getting evicted from tiny houses for building code violations. Is it likely this would happen? No, of course not. That probably wouldn't happen, but the potential is there. Issue number two is the one that threatens an RV trailer. Now, the current HUD definition of an RV does not demand that it meets up to any building code specifications. This new definition says it must conform to one of the following two: NFPA 1192 or ANSI A119. This is not a big threat to the RV community because, truth be told, most RV trailers already meet up to these codes and have one of these badges attached to the trailer itself. But what happens if an RV trailer does not conform to one of those two standards? If you live in a regular house and your home violates building codes, you can be evicted. Now, it stands to reason that if the government starts forcing building codes on an RV trailer and your RV trailer isn't up to code, the same kind of evictions could start to happen. Again, this is unlikely, but it has the potential to occur. The Recreation Vehicle Industry Association, or RVIA, put out a press release on 11 February 2016, saying this regulation was good for the RV industry. What the RVIA failed to mention in their press release is that ANSI A119 is the RVIA building standard, and manufacturers have to pay the RVIA for that certification. By mandating ANSI A119, lawmakers are assuring an income for the RVIA. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I applaud their efforts. I fully support the free market of good old American capitalism. I'm not against this regulation. I think there should be building standards for RVs and tiny houses. If the RVIA can make a few extra pennies on the side, hey, good for them. I don't see any problem with that. I just think the regulation should be phrased a little bit better. Let me show you the changes I proposed to docket FR 5877P01. My changes alleviate both of the problems I outlined, and more. In my version, the building codes will still be applicable, but builders will have choices of which ones to use, and older trailers will be exempt. Now, I won't read all of this text, but I'll point out a few of the highlights. So I put a factory or private-built vehicular structure. So it includes ones that are built by tiny house manufacturers or by individuals. It also notes that an RV is designed primarily, but not exclusively, for use as temporary living quarters. It also points out that it can be permanently towable by a Class 1 or higher truck and registered with a state transportation agency as a vehicle. So that allows it to include all tiny houses that are built upon trailers. And then you can also note at the very end, I put vehicles manufactured before January 1st of 2017 will be exempt from some of the above paragraphs. Now, I apologize for this video being a bit long and wordy, but I felt it was important to clarify things that were misunderstood. In closing, I want to thank all of you who have subscribed to my channel and started paying attention to what it is I'm doing out here. I was stunned that part 1 of this video became enormously popular and gained over 100,000 views in 1 week. I never expected a project like Luthorville to gain a big following. In fact, for over a year, this channel had less than 60 subscribers. Now, I have over 600. I am truly grateful for all of you good folks who started watching. You know, nothing is more precious than the brief flicker of time that we have upon this beautiful earth. Thank you very much for sharing some of your minutes with me.
Luthorville is an educational series inspiring kids and adults to become excited about innovations in science and technology by documenting the design and construction of a Mojave Desert homestead called Galatea Meridian. Witness the crazy story of how Eric Muss-Barnes, an unemployed computer geek and struggling novelist, risks homelessness by spending most of his life savings to build an off-grid dream house in the middle of nowhere. Having purchased vast acres of the Old West, can Eric find a stable job and create his home before his money runs out? Take a journey where fortitude and a pioneering spirit continue to forge the American dream on the romantic landscape of the American frontier.